I think we're ready to start. It's 3:05, so let's get started, you guys. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're so excited to launch our new initiative and bring the first ever the PYF Young Professionals Panel to you. What does this event aim to bring to our community? This event series aims to provide Pakistani students and youth a window into different career paths and experiences. Each panel will feature professionals from different backgrounds and industries and focus on specific themes. Our first panel on the topic, as you can see, graduating during an economic crisis. And today we have here with us Nissmah Atif, who is no stranger to anyone here today, our former PYF Chairperson and a budding architect, and Muhammad Junaid, who is, of course, not a stranger to anyone in this room today either, our former PYF Head of Education and a project manager by profession, who will be sharing their stories today. Thank you, Nissmah and Junaid, for being here today. And let's get started.
Thank you for having us, Aksa.
Thank you. How are the two of you doing today?
Alhamdulillah, doing great. Quite excited. Happy to be on the panel with Junaid, who's been my board member as well. So hopefully you guys will get to learn a lot.
We're so happy to have you two join us today. And I don't think we could have started our panel with a better duo than the two of you, who have changed the entire dynamic of PYF as we all know it.
So, I'd have to say it was a team effort.
Yes, for sure, of course. So let's jump into our conversation for today. So it's 2008. Let me take you back a few years back. So it's 2008 and the world economy is just ascended into chaos. Where were the two of you then, Junaid and Nissmah?
Junaid, do you want to? Okay, I'll go ahead. So 2008, actually, where I was in the internal chaos, because in 2008 I was in grade 9 and I was being made to choose between sciences and commerce when I was 15, which would eventually, lead me to a career path, which I had no idea what it would be at that point. So didn't know much about what's happening in the world at that point. Like this dilemma really took up most of my time, and I had to really, ask around and get a lot of help in terms of figuring out what my career path would be at that age.
Definitely, the decisions we make at such a young age impact the next 10, 20 years of our lives. And it is definitely the big step that we take at such a young age.
For sure. Junaid, do you want to talk about where you were in 2008?
So for me, graduation was one of the, let's say, lower concerns in 2008. So as most of you might know, I was born and raised here in the UAE. During the financial crisis of 2008, like a lot of people, our family also had to consider moving back to Pakistan because of the financial crisis over here. We did actually move back with the intention of being there permanently. We found another school, we got into it. And 3 months in, my mom's like, no, I cannot do this. I've spent a lot of effort into raising my children the way I wanted to, and in the environment that I wanted to when we were here in the UAE. And in Pakistan, she felt that all of her efforts were being, they were going down the drain. Within those 3 months, she could see what was happening, what would happen in the near future. She said that whatever happens, I'll make sure that my kids complete their education back in the UAE. So we came back here. My mom started working as a teacher. My dad was already working 2 jobs. And as soon as I finished my O-levels, I took up a part-time job as well. But like I said, alhamdulillah, with the grit of the whole family, we were able to continue our education over here and graduate over here.
So very different times back in 2008 for, I'm sure, all of us, but it's how we navigated our way forward. So let's take you back a little more as well. When you were graduating from school, like we just discussed, the world was in a different place at that time. What role did your childhood play in bringing you closer to your field today? And how did you decide that your field was right for you, given the uncertainty at that time?
So if I have to answer that, for me, it was, to give you a bit of context, I do not come from a very educated family background. On my dad's side, the maximum education anyone had was, let's say, high school. So from a very young age, and when I say very young, I mean 3 or 4 years old, the only focus in our house was education. My parents wanted to make sure that whatever they could not achieve in life, their children do that, and by whatever means necessary. So some of them were very strict tactics, but what that resulted in was that from grade 1 to grade 10 or grade 8, I think, before the grade system came in, let's say A, B, C, I used to get the first rank in class from first to eighth. And it was not just because I wanted to excel in studies, but because I knew if I didn't, what the consequences could be. So some people look at it as a bit of a toxic culture, the way it was, like, say, handled at home. But I also look at it the best my parents could do to make sure that we do not go through the same hardships that they did. So the only factor, to be honest, that mattered when I was going to choose what I was going to do for the rest of my life was what would bring in the most money. So one of the suggestions, and again, you guys are lucky now, like at least you have such platforms like PYF that are working on, let's say, providing guidance. And let's say you have the whole world is connected in a way where you have groups, where you have platforms where you can, reach out for advice. We were not that lucky back then. If you had an educated background within the family or in your close relatives, let's say, you could get some advice. Otherwise, you could not, just go onto Facebook, join a scholarship related group, mention that I need help, I need advice on something like this, and people were there to guide you. So that wasn't there with us. So the only access I had was, let's say, my friends who did come from educated backgrounds, and with their parents, the conclusion we got to was we need to get into engineering. Engineering is where the money is. So I got into engineering, and then I was like, okay, engineering has a lot of other scope as well. And let's see, which branch do I want to go into? And again, based on those same rudimentary measures, we came to the conclusion that mechanical engineering has the highest scope. You can go into automotive, you can go into industrial. So you'll have lots of opportunities. Money will be coming left, right, and center. Let's just get into it. And while that has not been the case because of this, let's say, the digital transformation, but that's what governed my decision into going into engineering.
Yeah, so I think that's my experience was very different compared to Jeanette. So growing up, my father was working at the American University of Sharjah he was the manager of the residential halls, the dorms, and my mother was a teacher, a primary school teacher. तो मतलब हमारे घर में ये था कि my mom was very focused in terms of making sure that any activity that we take part in, it's always educational. So हमारे जो computer games होते थे, they were always educational, teaching us English, math, sciences. Jo dad the, he was always excited about the newest technologies. So anytime the latest camera would come out or a PC would come out, like it was always excitement in the house. And I remember my dad getting very excited about these devices and always getting into exploring what they're about. So I was a quiet child, but also I was always in a corner, either sketching or drawing, and that was kind of my happy place. So मुझे याद है जब नया नया पीसी आया था हमारे घर में, my dad kind of put me in front of the PC, and there were these new like Microsoft Office had just come about. There was Paint, which was a art application on the PC, which would keep me busy for hours. So I think that's one of the reasons why I didn't end up scribbling on the walls, because I had a PC to to be creative on. So usse mujhe kafi matlab I was very much always involved in making like digital cards using PowerPoint, figuring out animations. Excel pay, my dad taught me how to make games, and my mom always making sure that we've got games like Jumpstart and the Mad Scientist on our PC. So is tarah se I grew up with an interest in the arts, but also the sciences, which in hindsight, when I look back, kind of really helped me tie up what my career would look like. And it was my dad who kind of guided me towards it, because when I was conflicted in grade 8 at the age of 15 to choose between sciences and maths, I think my dad was very quick in identifying that she's a bit artistic, but she's also into the sciences. So how we could get both of them together. And so yeah, that all of those experiences growing up kind of led to where I currently am, which I think it helped overall.
Thank you for that, Nissmah Junaid. I think all of us here can relate to the fact that, hardworking Pakistani parents and their focus on education is what has gotten us here today. And I'm sure everybody in this, I speak for everyone in this virtual room today, that education has been the guiding light for all of us. And the fact that, having supportive parents who understand that education is something that cannot be taken away from you, regardless of whatever path you take eventually. And I think we can all relate to the fact that education has been focused, and the fact that also the fact that I liked how Nissmah mentioned about her father understanding during, like a few years ago when parents were not that open-minded to the fact that their child would pursue something artistic, but the fact that they were open to exploring your skills as well. I think that is something that we can all learn from and implement in the future. Okay, another question that I'm going to throw your way is, can you briefly go over your journey to the present since graduating from school, since university? So what has the last 5 to 7 years or 10 years been like for you?
So basically I graduated from Arab Unity School, did my sciences, did my O levels in sciences. My AS level was done. I took subjects like physics, maths, and IT. Grade 8 में, like I said, थोड़ा अंदाजा हो गया था कि architecture करना है. वो भी ऐसे हुआ था कि my dad had taken me to the university, and he was like, "Beta, why don't you check out this field? I think it would work well with you." And I remember peeking in from the window and looking at all these students making these really cool models, छोटे houses बना रहे थे, trees add करे थे उसमें. And I just saw that and I was like, this looks interesting and this is what I want to do. So मतलब grade 8 में थोड़ा ये idea हो गया था. So I stayed focused in terms of what subjects I need. And then once I got into university, again, I felt that maybe I would be more inclined towards photography and graphic design क्योंकि वो एक जैसे मेरी hobby थी and something I was very passionate about as well. But again, I was guided in a way that why don't I try something a bit more challenging, which is along the same fields. And that's where I took up architecture, went to university. And then after that, I was fortunate enough to find a job working at an architecture consultancy here for the last 4 years that is really aligned with what I like to do and my passions. So that's just a brief journey of how I've gotten here so far.
Thank you for sharing that, Nissmah.
With me, like I mentioned, and like I think most of you would already know, private education does not come cheap here in the UAE. So as soon as I graduated from let's say I finished my A levels and I wanted to get an admission into, let's say, a university here. Because of my grades, alhamdulillah, I was fortunate enough to get admissions in multiple universities. And again, another thing that I would like to point out through this question is, I had the opportunity to join the Petroleum Institute in Abu Dhabi as, let's say, a fully paid internship, let's say, a scholarship, sorry. And they were ready to pay for the rest of my education with a monetary stipend as well on top. But because I was young and considerably dumb at that time, I chose that no, Abu Dhabi being 2 hours away from my family, I didn't want to take that risk. And I would rather just find a university that's closer to home within Dubai, and I'll take up a part-time job and I will fund my education, because it was one or the other. I could not afford the fees that was, or at least my family at that point in time could not afford the fees for the university I studied in. So it was either I go to Petroleum Institute in Abu Dhabi or I stick to some place over here, which I did eventually, Heriot-Watt University in Dubai. And I took up a part-time job, which eventually turned into a full-time job, because they said, if you're going to paying you, we'll need the bulk of your hours. That in hindsight, it was a good and a bad decision. It opened different sets of opportunities for me, which couldn't have opened up if I would have gone to Abu Dhabi. But at the same time, it limited my learning potential because I could not give the time that's required for a 4-year engineering program in terms of fully studying. So let's say that decided how much of time, or let's say how much of my life was going to be spent at the university and how much of it was going to be spent elsewhere working. Now I have to give credit to that time as well, because it helped me foster relationships that I have benefited from to this day, be it in my personal life, be it in my professional life, be it in monetary terms. Those relationships that I forged during my time working in the field while studying at the university, I think I could say that they've helped me probably more than what my university education could have done for me. So then let's say 2014, I graduated from the Heriot University in Academic City, Dubai. The good thing is, or let's say the good or the bad thing at that point in time, was that getting jobs was tough as it is today. So kids or whoever is listening to me right now, don't think it's going to get easy. It's going to get any easier, but it was any easier back then. So it's always a hustle to get your first job. But for me, the lucky thing was I got an interview before my final exams at the university. And I took that offer because I knew that if I wait and I do not get a job later, I will be regretting it. So I had my final exams in a month and I started working there. So my final exams were given by taking vacation, or let's say leave days from my office and studying nights at, let's say, a friend's house and catching up to all the work they had done and somehow passing through the university. I didn't get a great GPA. I wouldn't reveal that here, but I passed university. Since then, Alhamdulillah, the good thing has been that that company that I joined into 2014, I've been with them for the past 7 years. And I have had continuous growth with them, Alhamdulillah, which has made me, stick towards the same company. However, I've also made sure that I do not just stop there. I have contributed towards, let's say, community platforms like PYF. I have gotten involved with other business ventures. I worked as a freelancer for Do Telecom. I started recently, 6 months ago, an industrial startup. And we're trying to grow it from there while working at my full-time job. And then another itty-bitty small change that happened during these 7 years was I got married and I have 2 kids now, alhamdulillah.
Thank you for sharing that. I think the biggest takeaway from both your journeys is that the key here is hard work and dedication, and everything else just follows. So thank you for sharing that.
I think one more thing I want to add is that sometimes when you're in that process of struggling, right? So when Junaid said he was managing, working and studying, it's definitely very difficult, and it takes a toll. But like at the end of the day, you'll always see that all these experiences are going to teach you a lot of things that will help you in the long run. So yes, whilst you're in that struggle, take something. Every experience in life is going to give you a key takeaway, and that's something that's really important. And obviously, keeping yourself busy in other side activities is also very important. So like taking part in voluntary work, working on your side projects, all of these things that kind of give you emotional fulfillment, try to keep that up. And any opportunity that comes your way will give you an opportunity to grow and learn something different. So even if, let's say, if I'm an architect, that's just one side of let's say one aspect of my journey. There are a lot of other things that will complement my career, and if not, just help me grow as a person. So I myself also pretty much dedicated my time in PYF, try to align my hobbies with my career as well. So is तरह से you really learn a lot, and you won't feel that your struggles are really hard, especially when you're doing things that also bring you emotional fulfillment. I think that balance is important.
That's so true. I agree. I think your career growth and your personal growth doesn't only come from the platforms that bring you money, but it also, like your skills improve. You grow as an individual through different platforms and to different channels as well. And I think that really helps your career growth as well. So now I wanna talk about what was your first win that made you confident that you were in the right place, career-wise or life-wise. Junaid.
So I would say, I mean, um, I think when I started this job in 2014, I came on with them as a draftsman, which is, let's say, something wherein, if you're familiar, there's a software, AutoCAD, you put together, let's say, drawings, designs on that. And within 6 months, so during those 6 months, I made sure that I showed them what my potential was. I used to take up additional tasks. I used to make sure that I, learn from my seniors in whatever way I could. And within 6 months, I was promoted to project engineer, or as a junior project engineer, given a small project to handle from A to Z. So I consider that as my first win, because it showed me that if you put in the effort, within a short amount of time, growth potential is available. And with, let's say, using that, I've been able to, let's say, grow into as many platforms that I've put my hands in. And that's something, again, that I would recommend people, like Nissmah mentioned. The more you get involved with things, the more you grow personally and professionally. So that's something that I've done. And I feel that first, let's say, motivation, which I got within 6 months, that yes, if you work hard enough, results will follow. That has kind of laid the path for my rest of the 6.5 years with the company, and in general with the rest of my life.
Thank you. Yes. Let's hear what your first win was.
Yeah, so my first win was actually when I got into architecture school. So basically, I was in schools, they don't teach you about design. They don't even teach you arts. So I was coming from, I knew I wanted to go in this field because it aligned with my interests, but I didn't know exactly what I was getting into. So I remember, so in our university, American University of Sharjah, we have the College of Architecture, and in that we have 5 design disciplines. About 300 to 400 students enroll in the college, out of which 150 students enroll just for architecture. Okay? So first year, all these students are going to go through basic design courses to build up foundations in design. And that in itself is very challenging if you're not coming from a design background. So what essentially meant that there were a lot of things like software that they were teaching us. They were teaching us how to unlearn certain things to be able to learn new things. So it was a complete process of design thinking. Jiskender, you're looking for the solution. It's not like a maths problem where you know what the answer is and you have to figure out how to get there. It was always like figuring out on the journey itself. So वो काफी challenging रहा था, and I remember when we had the orientation in the first semester when we enrolled, and they told us, okay, out of 150 students, only 50 are going to get into the second year specializing in architecture. I came out of the room thinking to myself, wow, Nissmah, there's no way you can do this. You're not artistic enough. I mean, okay, you did what you did in school, you got straight A's, but how is that any of it going to matter? How are you going to make it so far? So I was already thinking on plan B. But then, over time, with a lot of persistence and having that goal in mind, कि नहीं, architecture ही करना है, I was able to overcome all those struggles. And yeah, it wasn't easy. It meant that I was like, at times I was so challenged, I would be crying because I just couldn't figure out how to do things. But with constant hustle rehti hai to achieve your goal, which kind of paid off at the end, because I remember we submitted our final foundations portfolio, which is basically this small book, which consists of all our work that we do in like first year. And it was submit kiya, and then I was like, okay, I was just praying to God, I'm able to, move on to the next year. And like a few weeks later, I get an email saying, congratulations, you've been selected into the top 50 students. And I think that was a moment that really I felt like I won something, because wo puri jo journey thi of jumping into the unknown, not knowing what you're going to study, how you're going to come out of it, that was very new to me. And for a student, like coming from a school where you are like a straight A student and you're amongst the top, to come back to a college where you have to start from scratch again, it was like, okay, I'm not the best here, so I have to start from scratch and I have to build myself up to reach there. So maybe biggest win ye thi, in terms of getting into the school that I wanted to get into. And in terms of work, it was mostly, I think I'm still waiting for the biggest win, which will probably be when I get to see like design a house and see it built and see people living in it and being happy with what we gave them. I think that's going to take a few years down the line. So these small wins are something that keep me going.
So true. I can totally relate to that. Jumping into medicine and then jumping into law after a year after that. So, like how you mentioned, jumping into the unknown and knowing that you've made it. I think I knew that a few months into law school, when I was truly happy and I was enjoying. So, I also want to talk about how, when you have this internal happiness, you also know that you've made it. You know that you're at the right place. So, and then when I finally graduated from law school, I felt like this whole load had been lifted off of my shoulders, and I finally felt like I'd made it. So I can totally relate to that.
Yeah.
Knowing that you're in a competitive field, it's completely unknown, something that's not taught to us in school at all. Like people who do sciences and business, they at least have some sort of background information about what to expect in that field. But people like us who choose engineering or medicine or law, we really do jump into the unknown, and then finally knowing that we've made it, I think that truly is our biggest win at that time.
And Akshay, I have to add to this, saying that even making that jump, like you mentioned, you were studying medicine and then you realize at some point that it's not for you and you shifted to law. That takes a lot of courage in itself as well. And Akshay, I used to meet even students in university who were stuck in a major that they didn't like, and they were just they were continuing it just because degree khatam karni hai. So and there were some students that realized कि ठीक है ये मेरा path नहीं है, and then they shifted majors. So it's never too late to get out of something that doesn't make you happy, especially if it's regarding your career. You might as well choose a path that really is something that you enjoy, because it could get really tough if you're in a path, because this at the end of the day is kind of defining what you're going to do in the future. And don't be afraid to change paths if you need to. Yeah, that's important.
I remember reading something once which said that if you follow your passion, and if you do something that you love, you never truly work a day in your life, because you're doing what you love. And I think we can't really emphasize enough on that. The fact that it's very important for us to make money and monetize our skills, but at the same time, following our passions really help us grow as well. So I want to ask you about if there was a time in both your careers or educational journeys where you felt like you weren't too sure about your career, like how I'm talking about medicine and law, an experience that made you rethink your choice, and how did you overcome that? I think it's Junaid can go next.
Sorry, can you repeat the question, Aksa? Sorry.
Like, can you share an experience that made you rethink about the career path that you had embarked on, and how did you overcome that? The self-doubts that usually end up taking over our mind, and we start to doubt all our choices. So was there ever a time in your life like that?
So I think there are two kinds of things that can probably contribute to that. One is if you're not happy with what you're doing, and the other is if you're not being rewarded enough for what you're doing. So for me, Alhamdulillah, I have not had a problem with not liking what I do, because I am into project management. I'm in a way, I like that I'm not into a very technical mechanical engineering field, because during the time when I was working part-time, I went into what do you call it, let's say sales, retail sales, and that made me interact with a lot of people. And that part of my life where I used to meet, let's say 50, 60 different people on a daily basis, listen to their stories, and moving into an office where I'm just sitting in front of a computer screen and trying to do just interacting with just that screen and nothing more than that other than a few people in the office, that was a big shift for me. And I kind of miss that, like the interaction with humans, I miss that. And I thought that was a strong suit that I built within myself, the interaction with people. So the good thing within 6 months that happened was, okay, I was moved into project engineering and project management. And that is where, again, you have to interact with a lot of people. Now that's less interaction and more following up, more expediting, more pushing, but still you're doing it with people rather than computers. So in a way, I've never had the, alhamdulillah, the issue where I was not happy with what I was doing. But yes, a couple years, let's say earlier, I had this issue where I thought that I was not being rewarded enough monetarily as I would like. And I considered shifting into sales. So I knew it would have been a big, big, big career shift, because it would have been something from technical to non-technical completely. And all of the educational years that I've spent at the university, at my A levels, at my O levels, studying sciences, I would have to make a willful decision that I am not going to be using them going forward. So that was something that I significantly considered. But again, my incentive over there was mostly monetary, not job satisfaction. But I got a raise, which I negotiated for at the company. So since that crisis was averted, I am continuing with the same company until, I feel disappointed enough again.
Yeah, I think rethinking the choice, rethinking my choice. So it used to happen basically, I think every semester hota tha, and even at times currently at work, when you have to, when you've given so much time to something and you feel like the end result isn't there yet, and you're asked to, um, you're putting in a lot of hours, you're putting in a lot of effort into it, and you feel like you're not compensated for it. I think that's the biggest, that those are the points where you do rethink, right? So either that could, and in my I think career, the times that I did rethink was when, for example, I had to work overtime and I had to sacrifice on a lot of my time with friends and family, and I just felt it was eating up too much of my time, and it and that was making me uneasy. But again, I guess what I tried to do is try to find a balance. So if, for example, my day job takes up 5 days of the week, I tried to see how maybe the other 2 days of the week I could compensate for the things where I feel like I'm not where I feel like it's my profession doesn't give me that kind of satisfaction. So finding satisfaction in different aspects of life kind of helped me to stay consistent with where I'm going. In terms of the career, I again, like Junaid said, I'm happy in terms of the kind of work I'm doing. Magar wahi jo ups and downs aati hain because of the struggle, those are the only moments that make me rethink things. But at the end of the day, when you either get rewarded by either being promoted or by monetary benefits, I think that then just keeps you going.
For sure. Now let's jump into career advice. Like, what was the best career advice that the two of you received, and what advice would you give your youngest self when you were just starting out? I think Nissmah can take that one.
Best career advice that I received was, it was probably, it has to be my father. So when I was again choosing my career, even before applying for architecture, he had I went to my dad and said, maybe I like doing photography. Maybe I want to go into Viscom and graphic design. And he's like, that's great that you're pursuing those as your hobbies, but why not, if you're going to university, why not try out a different skill set that is going to teach you something different? And he said, "Ke jo cheeze tum hobbies mein pursue kar rahi ho as a passion, you continue to do that. But maybe if you're looking at a profession, go for a profession that requires you to acquire a skill set and something that's unique as well. So and especially my plans were obviously to get educated here and start my career here, being in a marketplace where the construction industry is booming. This was kind of how I got into it. Regarding the second part of the question, could you just repeat that?
So what advice would you give your younger self?
My younger self is to be more confident in your abilities. You will always find yourself comparing yourself, your life, your work with others. But comparison is actually very dangerous, because it could either you'll compare yourself and feel like you're better than them, or you're going to compare yourself and get envious. So you need to be able to be confident in your abilities, and you need to find opportunities for yourself, especially when you're starting out. So you need to go out there. You need to tell people you know how to do things. And at times I can speak to as a creative, which is you need to also do a lot of work for free. So even though you might have spent years learning something, you have to do it for free just to get yourself out there. Yeah, so that's one thing that I will really tell my younger self, is to be confident. Don't compare your work to others. And if you're comparing, you do it to evaluate yourself and try to get better at it. That's why you would compare your work. But yeah, keep a healthy mindset where you are able to take the good out of things, rather than go the negative route.
Absolutely. So we've been getting a lot of questions on the side as well. Guys, keep sending them. The next question, I'm gonna throw it to Junaid. If you were starting your career from scratch again, what would you have done differently?
One, I think I would have gone into computers, because as we all know, at least the most recent graduates, at least from my time, that was, I think, where the shift majorly happened, and we couldn't capitalize on that. So I would try and focus on what the future trends are expected to be, rather than where we stand today, because most of my decisions were based on the knowledge that we had at that point in time of the market that was existent at that point in time. But if we could foresee, let's say 4 or 5, 10 years into the future, and which was evident actually back then as well, that okay, computers, yes, get into that. Second, I would have told myself, man, don't focus too much onto studies. While yes, it is important to be educated, have a degree, probably to start up, but more than that, it's about the learning. So whether you do it through a degree, you do it through a university, or you do it through any other channel in life, make sure you learn a skill, learn something. I know from my batch, there were students, I know myself, the way I graduated from the university, there was not a lot of learning. There was getting through university. And that is something that I would recommend students today as well. If you're going into universities, make sure you spend your 4 years over there studying and making an educated version of yourself, that that's the best you can get out of once you get out of the university. Another thing I would tell myself is, don't rely on one source of income. You have to generate as many sources of income as early as you can. Take risks while you're young. Phil Knight started Nike from the boot of his car. And I mean, any one of us can take those risks if we have, let's say, the right mindset. And I would recommend that, yes, people do that. Keep your education onto one side. Yes, you should always have something to rely back on, but work on skills, work on additional monetary streams, that can help you build assets and help you build that financial independence that keeps a lot of us going because we are stuck in a job. So while I love my job, I also would want to get to a position where I don't want to be working 9 to 6, 9 to 7 every day. I just want to be managing, or I want to be managing my assets. To get that, or to get there, I would just tell people, whoever is listening, start as early as you can, take risk as early as you can, start as small as you can. It will grow. Just stay committed.
Very true. It's so important to take risk while you're young. And I think our 20s are all about that. So the last question before we open the floor to our audience is that now again, students are facing uncertain times as we know it. So the world has changed so much in the last 10 years. And as we know, it's going to change some more in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years, given the fact that we're going to be shifting from a COVID world to a post-COVID world. So what do you predict will happen in the next 5 to 10 years industry-wise? And how can younger individuals who are just starting out better equip themselves, given the fact that the world is ever changing? Nissmah, I think you can take that, and then Junaid can share his insight.
I think in the next 5 to 10 years, we're looking at a lot of collaboration across cultures globally. We're looking at a lot of, I guess, a lot of entrepreneurs coming out, because if one thing COVID has taught us is that you need to have backup plans. You need to have, you will plan something, but something else is going to happen and things are going to change. So you need to become very flexible and adaptive to the environment, and not let the change, not let change intimidate you. So we're looking, I guess, a lot of people, I guess students need to work a lot on their communication skills, learn about design thinking, problem solving techniques. I think that's exactly what the world needs right now. I mean, in terms of even the way like things in my industry are changing, I think someone's mic is switched on. I can hear my own voice. But yeah, in terms of even the way people are working or living at home, the lifestyle is completely changing. So we're seeing a shift in people moving from apartment living to living in the suburbs because people are working in the same place. We're seeing a demand for urban planners, urban designers, because the way cities are being rethought is something that's taken into consideration. So a lot more green spaces, a lot more infrastructure to reduce distances. That's being put into place. So I think we're looking at a very global kind of environment where someone who's sitting in UAE can even receive education or university, can attend university in Canada, US, etc., and really avail from all those opportunities that didn't exist years ago. So there's a lot of potential, and I think we just have to we need to be hopeful and resilient in these testing times, basically.
Thank you. Junaid, what about you?
So like Nissmah mentioned, while there has been an obvious shift towards digital, that is something definitely to look towards. Nowadays, there are platforms like Fiverr, Upwork, where students today can create their profiles and start earning from today itself by learning skills through YouTube, learning skills through different platforms that provide them. But another thing I think is, I've worked with enough people to know that if you're skilled enough at something, it is extremely unlikely that you'll not be able to make money out of it. So try not to be, let's say, a jack of, I just think that if you're skillful enough, and if you're dedicated enough, and if you're hardworking enough, you'll always find a way. And whatever skill you pick, just make sure you get better and better at it every day. And definitely, I'm sure that you will be able to get yourself a living out of it. But yes, move towards digital if you can. Invest in Tesla. See if you can understand blockchain and you can find the next Bitcoin. I mean, that's what we are all looking for right now.
Very good advice.
Yeah.
Just one more thing I would like to add. I saw a comment in the chat from Haris Mahmood. He's mentioned that it's best to work on Amazon as virtual assistant. I would 100% recommend that. And as a matter of fact, Haris, I have hired a virtual assistant for myself because I wanted to do something on Amazon as well. So if you are looking to do that, maybe I can get in touch with you also.
Great. So thank you so much, both of you, for such an insightful panel today. So we're going to open the floor to our audience. We have a question from Farhad, which is, what if that career path doesn't have good pay scope? And I think I'm going to let Junaid answer that, because he talked about, how important money and career is together. So Junaid, let's talk about that a little.
So I would say it depends on what your priorities in life are. If you're getting enough out of it to let you live a peaceful life and you're at peace at the end of the day and you're happy with it, then that is good enough. But if you think you're not getting as much as you would like, and even after putting in the whole effort throughout the day, you're not getting peace when you go back to bed at night, there has to be something needs to be done. So you have to understand, all of us have 24 hours in our lives. Bill Gates has 24 hours, Mark Zuckerberg has 24 hours, Elon Musk has 24 hours. If they're spending it in a different manner and they're making, let's say, billions, we should at least target maybe millions and we'll get somewhere. But my thing is, like, we have to make sure that at the end of the day, I should feel that I've gotten the best value for my hours the way I've spent it. Even if it means that I've gotten the peace that I wanted, that is sufficient enough. But if your goals are monetary, then make sure you get there. And as has been, I don't have to say it, as has been seen from practical life examples, you stay committed, you have the right grit, the right passion, you will get results.
Thank you for that. Huda has a very important and a very different question, which I think a lot of times we don't talk about this. And I think Nissmah would be the right person to answer this. What if a career path doesn't lead to appreciation from your colleagues or management, hence demotivating you further and making you question if this is the right thing for you to begin with?
So yeah, definitely a work environment is very important for your mental health as well. And if you don't, again, if you don't feel like you are being rewarded enough in your work, try looking at other avenues. Obviously, it's not easy for everyone to just leave their job if they're in a bad work environment. It helps to definitely keep a search for something new. Keep consistent with that. Secondly, I would say maybe you look at other things that bring you happiness. So, for example, with me, I remember I was at this job right before the current one that I'm in, and I was not appreciated for the work that I did. And I felt that, after all of this, all of the effort that I put in, I didn't deserve that kind of treatment. But I had to stick on to the job, and the way I kept myself at peace was try to keep myself engaged in things that I like to do. So at that point, for example, PYF was an outlet for me where I got a chance to do the things. Like, for example, I helped out voluntarily to help design the flagship PYF flagship events. That gave me a boost to keep going. So whilst I didn't get enough satisfaction at my job, there was another avenue for me where I was satisfied. So and meanwhile, I was actively searching for other jobs, because yes, you don't need to think that it's okay if you're treated badly, or if you're demotivated, that you deserve to be there. You just need to keep trying to get out of it. And if that means looking at other avenues, pursuing different hobbies, starting maybe your own side hustle that kind of helps you, then you do that.
Thank you for that. Very true. Before we jump on to our next question, there is a feedback form for all of you to fill out that has been shared in the chat box. So please do have a look at that. Now moving on to our next question, which is by Ikra Rafiq. Is it as easy when you say to follow your passion, taking other factors into consideration, a lot of which change during a crisis? So the fact that we talked about following our passion, and but with an ever-changing world, how easy would that be to follow your passion instead of, like how Junaid mentioned, finding avenues to sustain ourselves? So I think Junaid would be the right person to share his insight on this.
So I think, in my opinion, passion cannot be substituted with circumstances. If you think there is something that you're passionate enough for, whatever the circumstances, you will continue to work with it. However, if you feel it has gotten to a point, so it's all about priorities. The best case scenario is this is your passion, this is the money you're getting against it, they're both at the same level and you're happy with it, fine, you go ahead with it. That's the easiest decision to make. Now, let's say there's a point where this is the passion, this is the money you're getting, you choose. Are you willing to sacrifice the money to be spending time on your passion? Or there's another career path where you have money, but the passion goes out the window. And is that something you're willing to compromise on? So I think you are, Ikra, the best person to make that decision for yourself, or whoever is in that dilemma, they're the best person to choose that. What do I want to prioritize more? And it is very likely that tonight, let's say you're in a position where you would want to prioritize money over passion. But let's say 5 years down the line, you are at a point where you've made enough that you can go back to passion. So that's why I would say keep that passion alive. Like Nissmah mentioned, find other avenues where you can exercise that passion if you do not want to compromise on money. So keep working towards the money factor while keeping your passion alive through other avenues. And then once you're ready, once you have the financial independence, once you have the next coin that hits $60,000, you can come back to your passion and you can continue.
So true. So
Yes.
Nissmah, Haris is asking us, shall we choose profession for money, popularity, or respect? Which is a very good question, because a lot of times, especially in our South Asian community, professions are often looked down upon or favored more upon the other, given the fact that whether they bring more respect to you or more money to you or more popularity. So should the youngsters give into that, or how can we change this perspective?
So I think for hold on. Money, respect, or popularity. I think your, again, profession se yahi aata hai ki aap what do you want to prioritize, right? If you are going after if you're going after the money, I mean, I think your passion determines where you go at it in life. So agar, if you're passionate about popularity, you're gonna automatically gravitate towards fields or means that get you that popularity, right? Regardless of what profession it is. If for example money is a factor, then you're gonna again find ways of how you can make money out of any kind of situation. Similarly, I think respect jo ek cheez hai, that is something that you gain over time, and respect comes from the work that you do, and it comes from the way you deal with people. It comes based on your work ethics, and that is eventually something that will get you respect in return. So at the end of the day, it should be your work that speaks for yourself and gets you that respect. There were small things, like especially when I remember I took up my first freelance job, and uske andar I worked with a client to design some interior spaces, and it was my first job, so I did charge lesser than usual, and whilst I was working for the client, I was delivering on time. The quality of work was something he was pleased with. He automatically said, I'm going to increase your pay, you know, and you don't get that. But I developed this kind of work ethic with the client, which enabled me to get respect out of it. So stay grounded, stay true to your ethics, which is very important at the end of the day.
Very true. The fact that it's how you work. What do you do with your work is what gets you money, respect, and popularity at the end of the day, and not our preconceived notions of the previous generations where they felt like कि बस यही करना है तो इसी से पैसे और इसी से इज्जत मिलेगी. लेकिन आज in 2021, it's whatever we do. It's how we do it, how we present ourselves to the world, and how hard we work and how dedicated we are is what brings us money, popularity, and respect. So I would say follow your hearts and work hard.
Actually,
but if we don't get, so what should we do? If we don't get, so what should we do?
Who is that? Could you
Haris.
say your name and jump into the conversation? Okay,
I'm
yes.
saying that if the person does not get money, respect, or popularity, so what should he do now?
So can I answer that?
Yes, Junaid, all yours.
Okay, so Haris, there are things that you can control and there are things that you cannot control. आपने कुरान में भी पढ़ा होगा वो तो इज़्ज़ु मन तशाउ वो तो ज़िल्लु मन तशा. अल्लाह जिसे चाहे इज्जत देगा जिसे चाहे ज़िल्लत देगा, लेकिन आपने अपनी तरफ से तो अपनी कोशिश पूरी रखनी है. So if you think that you have given your 100% and you're not able to get, let's say, the respect or the money that you're looking for, change your ways, because you will always see people that will be doing probably things slightly differently than you, and they'll be getting there. So just keep going. There is no such thing as saying I've tried everything and it does not work. You cannot tell this ever in life that I've tried everything and I'm sure this is not going to work. That cannot be possible.
Thank you, Junaid. Maria Sheikh has a question. Maria, please unmute yourself and go right ahead.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you, Junaid and Nissmah. It was very, very informative and very helpful. So thank you for that. I actually have two questions, but one for Nissmah and both of them can answer maybe. So for Nissmah specifically, I was interested in knowing, when talking about some of the challenges that we face and some things that are in control and that are not in control, and you being a woman, I was just curious to know the kind of challenges that you faced being a woman in the workplace, something that was specific to you, some challenges, and how you overcame them, because this is, I think, a discussion that we're recently having, and it's great that we're having these conversations. So I would love to know your experiences as well. Another question, unrelated, but I'll just throw in so other people also have a chance to ask. I'm also graduating this in 2 months, actually. And when we're searching for jobs and everything, one keyword that we hear from our counselors is network. But nobody really teaches us how to network. And there's no specific way. They're like, okay, make an account on LinkedIn and this or that. So maybe like, Junaid could probably answer, and Nissmah, anyone, of how big the role of networking was in your career path, and what are some of the tips and suggestions that you have to do effective networking and not just like going around crazy. So yeah.
I think those are great questions, Myra. Thank you very much for sharing. So challenges in the workplace being a woman. Yes, this is a very male-dominated field. So a couple of things that that I learned over time was, in order for you to be taken seriously, you need to assure you need to assure them that you know exactly what you're talking about. So speak with confidence when you do. At meetings, there are times when you get overshadowed. And you know, those are the points where you need to step up, and you need to constantly be persistent. This is something I learned from one of my female project managers. We have 5 project managers, out of which one of them was female, and I have to say her the way that she pushed her way through was absolutely inspiring to see, because you realize that there are times when during meetings she would get shut off. So there were times when, you know, they just sideline her completely. even though she is one of the project managers that was managing the most number of projects at a time. So, but one thing that I always learned is that she was always running behind everybody to get the work done, to constantly prove herself. She would make sure that whenever she's talking about something, she has things to back her up. So what's important is to know what you're talking about, speak with even if you don't know what you're talking about, speak with confidence. And I think this would be an advice I would give to anyone regardless of gender. So over time, I even learned that regardless of gender, if you even if you show good work ethic, and you show that you are able to prove yourself in difficult situations, it will always help you, and that kind of helps you build respect regardless of gender. But yes, moving up the ladder as a woman, as a female project manager, I could tell how much she had to go through to come up to that level. But in general, my advice to anyone would be, set a standard for yourself, deliver good quality, deliver on time, stay true to your word, and always be confident, even during times where you feel like you don't know anything.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you.
Junaid, do you want to add?
Yeah. So first off, hats off to all the women that are climbing the corporate ladder today. And with the current crop of women coming forward, I'm sure it's going to get better and better, inshallah. With regards to networking, I like to think of it this way. There are three things that make the world go round. One is what the scientists call the gravitational pull of the sun. I think it has been proven already. Second is money. And for me, third is connections. So the more connections you can make, the better opportunities you'll be able to have. Now, you asked a very good question that, okay, how do I go about making connections? You go on LinkedIn, you'll see people with 500, 600 plus connections, and not probably 10% of them would be approachable in a way that if you send them a hi, they would be responding back. So how do you make those quality connections? So I think one thing that we need to learn is we need to learn about give and take. We need to understand that, let's say, fine, I'm a junior, I'm just starting in my life, this is a senior, how can I add value to their life? Let's say you are trying to create a connection, right? The connection is from both ends. They need to see that, okay, either this person is eager enough to learn from me and I'm willing enough to teach them something, or there is value addition in having a connection, a meaningful connection with them. So what I've seen a lot of people do on groups like where there are networking opportunities, they won't just send you random messages, or they won't just comment on every post of yours saying that, oh, can we get together or something like that. What they'll do is they'll post content of their own that is engaging enough for people within that field. So let's say if I gave an example that I've hired a virtual assistant to do something for me on Amazon. Now, I put up a post on a group where they have 500,000 different members working as virtual assistants or different, let's say, different kind of freelancing jobs. And I got probably 200 different comments saying that, oh, I can do this job, I can do this job, I can do this job. I went to each one of their profiles and I saw what they had actually done in their life that they had posted on that group about the work that I was asking for. So if I found people that had already shown that they had the technical expertise, fine, even if they did not have the hands-on experience, I'm willing to give you that. So that's where the value addition in the relation comes in. I am willing to take a chance on you as a fresher and give you my time to groom you. But at the same time, I need to know in return that you have the capability to soak in all that knowledge, to be willing to run around and get me the results that I want, and to be willing to learn as much as there is to learn. So I think when you're looking to make those connections, be personal, try to make, let's say, read books. So there are a couple of books I would recommend. One for sure is How to Influence People. I do not remember the author's name right now, but I would recommend definitely read that book. Another book I would recommend is definitely it's unrelated to connections per se specifically, but rich dad, poor dad, it will at least, I won't say it would 100% change your mindset, but it will open your mind up to the opportunities that are available, which we're not even exposed to. So I won't say I'm nearing 30 now. I'm not 30 yet, but let's say I am getting to know about opportunities that people in Western cultures get to know about in their teens because of the culture that they have there. So I know people who had invested in Apple stocks, let's say 10 years ago, when I didn't even know what stock trading was. And they were people of my age, but just coming from a different cultural background. So I think expand your horizons. And the more interesting you are, the more people would want to connect with you. The more engaging you are as a personality, the more you will see that people reciprocate that and they want to be connected to you.
Mhm. Very true.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I wanted to add on to another thing, which is also, I guess, building a digital footprint for yourself. Update your LinkedIn profile. If you're a creative, have a website of your own where you put your work out there on display. People want to see your journey. They want to see your work. So as a creative, I would say use platforms to like Wix, Squarespace, to have a website of your own. Behance is a professional website for artists, so a lot of people get connected to designers using that website. And work on having that, creating a kind of identity for yourself, so that whenever at least people in your circle need to think of a particular service that, let's say, you can offer, you are the first person they think of. So try within your circle, and have that kind of digital footprint out there, which is important. Not only that, work on communication skills, negotiation skills. हर चीज में काम आएंगे आप लोगों को. And yeah, just try build your identity online, which I feel like in this digital era is important, alongside networking. And networking, maybe you could have one group that as a group that mentors you. You could have one group which is a group where is they're seeking opportunities or services from you. So try to involve yourself in different circles, because at the end of the day they're gonna open up a lot of different avenues, and you never know ki opportunity kahan se aati hai. So I think, as adding on to what Junaid also said, I think at this point in time, yes, we need to work on networking as well. During my time, honestly, it wasn't networking ka itna wo kya kehte hain, I didn't have a lot of exposure to it. But at the end of the day, even the current job that I got was also through a university contact, right? And some of the places where my batchmates were placed were through help of their professors. So you always need a connection and a referral. And in order to get a good referral, you need to be a good human. You need to have the skill set, and you have to have the right attitude to convince the other person on why they should hire you. And you will always learn skill sets in university, or you will learn skills on the job, but what actually matters is how you are as a person. And that is something that we don't have courses to teach us that, but it's important to work on yourself and be self-aware, and be able to take criticism easily. ये भी एक चीज है जो बहुत important है in the professional field. अक्सर ये होता है कि when somebody gives you feedback or criticism, it's always taken personally. So one thing that you should try and develop amongst yourself is if someone gives you feedback, take it in a humble manner, see what can be changed, talk to them, and don't take things personally. And that's one thing that I feel like it really puts it takes you steps backwards. So yeah.
Great questions, Myra, and great answers, Junaid and Nissmah. I think for the females making their way in the corporate world, I would like to say there's a quote by Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who's a very well-known judge. So she said, equality will be reached when women are in all places where decisions are being made. And I think we are finally at that point where you are seeing women in all sorts of rooms. But we'll only be able to attain equality is when they're not just in those rooms, but also being heard, and their points and their decisions and their opinions are being implemented as well. So I think things are happening, but more needs to be done. And as far as networking is concerned, I recently got an advice from a mentor that I look up to, and he said, you either network or you don't work. So either network or no work. But I think it's a very elaborative saying, and it's not just about networking, but it's also about building connections, because you grow as an individual professionally and personally when you meet more people from different backgrounds and different industries. So I think that's why networking is also important. So we have one last question before we wrap up, and that is by Haris again, which is, if a person likes two professions, what should they do and how to choose one profession from the other? So Nissmah, Junaid, whoever would like to jump right in.
And I would say just make a list of the pros and cons. I mean, for me, decisions have to be logical. So it again comes back to the same thing. What do you prioritize more? And if it's becoming a difficulty for you to make a decision and deciding what to prioritize more, assign a score. Let's say I would assign this 1 to 10, and priority sits 8 on my scale for, let's say, my passion, and money sits 6 on my scale. And then you tally up the different criteria that you have in mind about the two different positions and see where that takes you. But another thing I want to say is, sometimes people take a lot of time in trying to get the information and analyzing that information before making a decision. I am someone who does that, and I'm trying to actively change that, because that is something that hurts you in the long run. So try and there's a 40-70 rule. Try and make decisions with 40 to 70% of the information that you have, and then the rest you leave it to your gut. So if your gut says this is what makes more sense, just go ahead with that. And that's okay. There's always U-turns. You can always come back.
I agree. I took a U-turn, so I completely agree with that. Taking a plunge, I first jumped right into another profession, and then another one right after that. So because I liked both of them. So the fact that I liked both of them, but what do I do? I mean, should I do medicine? Should I do law? And the fact that I liked both. So like Junaid said, you wait out, but at the end of the day, just go with your gut, and whatever you feel like is the right place for you, like how we talked about earlier in our conversation as well. When you know about your first win, when you know you've made it. And life also has a way of working itself out. So we can plan a lot as much as we want to. Life will eventually make you end up where you're supposed to, and things will work out. So keep working hard. And I think if we don't have any more questions, we could wrap up.
Excuse me, ma'am, my last question I have.
Yes, Haris.
Ma'am, as Ms. Nissmah said that we should work as a co-curricular activity, so how a student can do these type of services like freelancing and working on Shutterstock and Fiverr? So can you explain that question, please?
Sure. I think that's a very good question. And what students can do is there are a lot of free courses that are being offered online. There are a lot of places that Coursera, Domestika, that you can enroll in. There even certain Domestika, I think, even has a cut down discounted rate. So enroll yourself in courses. YouTube has a lot of tutorials that they offer. So if you need to learn any skill, definitely make use of that avenue. Another thing is to if get involved in like voluntary causes, because I think that will help you keep yourself busy, meet different people, and I think that's one way to go as well. And basically try to explore as much as you can, especially during this time, even after school and before university. If you have some time, just list down, take some time to self-reflect, list down on what are the things that you enjoy, and see how you can you can try those out. So whether that means online courses, whether that means starting your own website, whether that means reading more books, explore and find out what is it that you enjoy. Volunteer organizations bhi yahan par hai. Pakistan Youth Forum is there. There is Dubai Cares. There are lots of other places in UAE that you can look into, and yeah, just have fun. If you're a student right now who doesn't have the if you don't have the pressures of starting work immediately, I think take some time to explore different things that you like to do. And for me, what helped when I was unemployed after graduation for 9 months, one thing that I did for myself is learn how to journal, right? So I would write down my experiences. I would write down what are the things that I like, any kind of like negative experiences that would happen in life. Uske bare mein likhna, us pe self-reflect karna kind of will help you as a person also to understand what are the places jahan par aapko maza aata hai. Aur phir yeah, I would suggest online courses is something we like these YouTube tutorials, etc. we didn't have back in the day. So definitely take the YouTube courses, free courses online. And yeah, I think digital skill sets seekhna at this day and age is very important. So maybe have a look at what are the things that interest you. Do you like web designing? Do you like data analytics? Do you like what are the other things that you like? Just explore and yeah, enjoy yourself.
This has been such a great conversation, and I feel like if we continue, we're never going to end. And I can see the enthusiasm that we've had from our attendees as well. Our chat box has been blowing up. So thank you so much, Nissmah and Junaid, for taking the time out to share such wonderful experiences with all of us today, and for all our attendees for being a part of this today, and for all your wonderful questions and input. So stay tuned. We'll be coming back with another session very soon. And I just wanted to say thank you to Nissmah and Junaid once again for doing this. Thank you so much. I know that I've enjoyed this a lot, and I'm sure everybody else has as well.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.